Financialization under debate the disconnection between profits and investment in the Spanish case. Introduction. Financialization is one of the phenomena that has received the most attention and dedication in academic literature, especially since the last decade and in the most developed regions of the world, namely North America and Western Europe. The observation of the rise of financial activity in the most important capitalist centers and a series of qualitative change in international financial markets are the most relevant factors when explain the proliferation of this analysis, which mostly deviate both the theoretically and methodologically from the dominant economic theory. One of the main theses refer to most theorists of financialization is the growing disconnection between corporate profits and investment. According to these authors, this occurs due to a multiplicity of mechanisms that encourage the transfer of recursos to finance trades. In this sense, highlight the regulation of financial markets and neoliberal policy polling refers to the reappearance of the figure of the rentier to explain the exacerbated increase in financial activity at the expense of the revitalization of investment and growth in developed economies. Other authors claim that this thesis is biased by the artificial compartmentalization through the analysis of national economies of an increasingly globalized world economic in which foreign direct investment is increasing rapidly. An example of such a position is proved by Gill when he states, contradicting the French author Michael Hudson, that the growing difference between the evolution of profits and accumulation does not exist if we take into account the massive investments that are being made in emerging countries. This and other contribution from a small group of authors critical of the main theorist of financialization have suggested two fundamental elements: the questioning of some of the explanations of financiation of the influence of finance on the economic circle and the great relevance of the unit of analysis used in the study of the thesis mentioned above. The objectives of this work are, on the one hand, to analyze whether the Spanish economy experienced between 1980 and 2012 such a separation between profits and investment, and on the other to verify whether the respective of the large Spanish companies offer use between 1997 and 2011 a different trend. The interest in the Spanish economy derives basically from the speciality of this financialization, which, as Lopez and Rodriguez point out, is mainly associated with the overexploitation of the territory and the decisive rule of the real estate market. Likewise, the choice of large companies is based on the fact that this analytical perspective allows the study of profits and investment to avoid being limited by the borders of a national economy. In addition to growing weight good internationality and in the Spanish economy, respected by only 0.1 of the total number of companies, accounted for 27 of salaried employment and 35% of gross added value in 2010. Although it is true that both figures are lower than the average for the European Union, 27, 32, and 42% respectively. The relative importance is below and it don't vote. Finally, the structure of the work consists of a presentation of the debate surrounding the thesis under study, a section that presents the data collected differentiating according to the unit of analysis used, and finally the most significant conclusions. The essence of financialization from different perspectives. The literature on financialization is expensive and varied, as many authors in their efforts to characterize the current pattern of accumulation that developed in the 1960s and after the second oil crisis have referred to multiple aspects, many of which are included in the studies on financialization due to their relationship with the rise to finance. This selection aims to frame the empirical part of the work around the exciting debate on the essence of financialization mentioned above, which is also known as the source thesis. This debate is presented below through to readers the unit of analysis used to study the phenomenon of financialization and to the identification of two theoretical positions around it. As can be seen in Table 1, the principle of the world economy allows us to identify the essential difference between the two currents presented financialization and the critique of financialization. On the one hand, two authors who adhere to the thesis of financialization generally maintain that the cause of stagnation of productive activity is the growth of the final tiers. This confirmed in quantitative terms where they observed how the magnitude of the international financial markets has increased substantially and in quality terms, as for example, Chennai or Blackburn, whose note how the emergence of new agents, institutional investors, hedge funds, etc. And new practice have succeeded in establishing a greater short-termist in economic activity and determining the periodist areas in which capital is valued. Likewise, Lavabit Sast highlights the financial independence at acquired by large corporations with respect to banks, which was led the latter to direct their activity towards the intermediations of financial product transactions, thus obtaining benefits from different sources. In, in this table 1, the position is in debated financiation, criticism of financialization. The On the other hand, a small group of authors critical of these tendencies maintain that the cause of the rise of financial activity is in the difficulties of valorization of capital in the producer, so they take a longer term perspective to explain the situation of over accumulation of capital that has ended up collapsing the economy of the great powers. The reform, uh, for tense authors financialization is only an manifestation or an effect of the real problem of the process of capital accumulations is tendency to over accumulation. Likewise, as evidenced by Mateo, this difference of a more the theoretical nature leads to a positive interpretation of the current crisis in the capitalist sense. In this sense, the theorist of financialization place the origin of the recession in the financial sphere, and the critics empathize the difficulties exciting in the productive share. The first position is evidenced by Paley, who argues that financialization is the key cause of the macroeconomic change that have led to economic stagnation and a more unequal distribution of income, while Bellamy Foster states that financialization is more a way of compensating for the underlying disease that affects capital accumulation itself. Secondly, in the table reflects the perspective of national economies, which is the most common in the analysis of the thesis of financialization under study. Many authors show data from different economies, almost always developed related to the rate of accumulation or net investment to support their slowdown in comparison with the rate of profit. Hudson released would variables by constructing a new indicator, the rate of financialization, which he also used to define the phenomenon itself. This thesis has given rise to what has come to be called the Marxist questions. Why do companies not reinvest their profits? and consequently to a proliferation of studies on the determinants of investment. Some mechanisms through which this situation is generated are the financial deregulation carried out by the governments of the great majority of countries, or the increase in the power of renting, which generates growing financial income and greater grade of the financial sector regarding rentals. En este artículo estamos hablando de los grandes avances en la economía y cómo ha sido variable por diferentes factores. Entre uno de ellos puede ser el petróleo, los grandes avances tecnológicos que han surgido en cada una de las épocas.